All right, so like I said, the backend is not something we'll finish in 1 day or in 2 days or even in 3 days. That means we started the backend, we'll be adding to it small, we'll be adding to it small. Before you know, we have a full backend. And the moment we are done, at the moment I complete adding my own, then you will start building your own backend project. So the reason why I'm starting late is because I want to know those I will have to wait for. Now, I don't know how many persons are supposed to be in this class. Now we are 15, maybe it might be 10, 20. So I just hope I'm not leaving anybody behind. All right, let's begin. We have our server, and this is our server running. We understand what this server is doing, and the server, you create the server only once, and that's all. You don't create the server again. You just create the server, you move on, start building your APIs. So after that, we have the first get request. It's not doing much. To the default route, accept the request, accept the response, and send back us a JSON message. This is a bare message. Nice. I want to believe, as I'm going with you, or will I say as you are going with me, please make sure you are understanding the back end. The back end is simple, it is sweet. I can assure you. I think we were having an argument, was it yesterday? Some foreign guys, they are saying don't trust people who say JavaScript is easier than CSS. But it's the truth. JavaScript is actually easier than CSS. And you will not know until you start writing Sass or maybe Bootstrap and Tailwind. Then that's when you know that JavaScript is actually easier than CSS. But let's continue. There are two things we need to add to our backend, and then we consider it the end for today's class. The first thing is called status codes. When you are building your backend, there are so many ways that you are supposed to inform the front-end developer on what is going on at the back end. There are so many ways you can do that. The first way is what we are doing with messages. So here we are adding messages. Registration is successful. Please add your name. Please, this is underage. So you can either work with developers that front-end developers that rely on your messages. When they see your message, they know what is going on. Some developers rely on messages. Like I rely on messages. If I'm working on the front end, I will rely on your message. I want to see your message so that I know what is going on. But other developers do not rely on your message. They rely on status codes. Now, status code are these things. You see 100, 101, 102, 200, and then you see 404, 300, 500, and so on and so forth. If you come to Postman, you see that here we have status code of 200 here, meaning that everything went okay. The request was successful, everything went okay. So based on that, we'll try to understand what status code is. Now, status code will tell the front-end developer what is going on. So, sorry, let me find a better place where we'll see. Okay, this is list of status codes. I don't know if that's going to show us what we want. Let me see this. All right. These are all the status codes, but I want to explain it in groups where it is grouped. Yes, this is the group here now. Now, any status code between 100, now I don't know if you can see that. I'll copy this. Let me copy it and share it to you. Any status code between 100 to 119 are informational status codes. And any status code from 200 to 299 are successful status codes. And any status code from 300 to 399 are redirectional or redirection status code. And then any status code from 400 to 499 are client error status code. And any status code from 500 to here are server error status codes. So how do you use them? For example, let's use the first one. Here, the client is supposed to send us an email. The client is supposed to send an email. Now, in a case where they do not send this email, just a minute, give me a minute. Okay, so let's go. No, you don't need to know 100 to 500. I don't even know some of them. I don't. There are some that are very, very important that you will use regularly. Those are the ones I will use, and I will show them to you too. But you don't need to cram from 100 to 500. No, but you should know the range. If you see any code that fall within the range of 100 to 199, they are telling you that the response is informational. It's trying to inform you about something. That is, if the front-end developer relies on status codes. Now, I'm not saying they must. Some front-end developers don't even care about your status codes, but a lot. I have a friend of mine, George. He relies on status code. If you don't add status code, he will ask you to please add status code. Even if you're adding 2 or 3 messages, he doesn't really care. He wants to see status codes. So if the front-end developer sees any status code within the range of 100 to 199, it means that the server is trying to inform him about something informational. Now, if the client or the front-end developer sees a status code between 200 to 299, he knows that things went well. They went successfully, or maybe it went successful, but something is wrong. But you know that it went successfully. But if it goes from 300 to 399, then it means that it is either the website has moved, the resources have moved, or the API has changed. That's just something has changed. It's redirecting you somewhere else. But if the status code fall between 400, zoom in on which side? Which side should I zoom in? I think I'm already zoomed in. Which side should I zoom in? Yeah, so back to status code of 400. If the status code fall within 400 to 499, you know that it is the user's fault. That is why it says client error. So it is either the front-end developer is making a mistake, or the user is actually making a mistake. Something is wrong in that area. So it's the user's fault from 400 to 499. But if there is a problem with the server or the API or the backend, anything error that is related to the server, the backend, the status code will fall within 500 to 599. So if you see something like sorry, request cannot be completed, and the status code says 500, you know that the error is from the server, it's from the backend. Now, those of us who use mobile apps, you'll be able to pay attention now to mobile apps. If you try to make a transfer, or maybe with the ATM or with something, and you see a status code, or by mistake see the error message and the status code, you'll be able to tell whether it is actually the fault of the server, maybe network per se, or maybe it's actually the fault or your fault of what you entered. You entered the wrong amount or something. So you'll be able to tell, is it from the server, the back end, or is it from the front end? That way you would know. So for example, here, the front end is supposed to send us an email, but they are not sending the email. That's what this thing means. If they don't send the email, we want to return a message. Now, while we are returning a JSON message, we can also attach a status code to this. Now, the status code will be status and then passing 400.json. So this is how we pass in status code. So you return response dot status and then dot JSON. So when you see a status code of 400, you know that it is the error or the mistake of the user or the front end. You didn't enter the right information. That's what it means. And also here, if the age is less than 500, you can also put it here, say dot status and then pass in 400, because the user is supposed to send us, or the user is supposed to be a user that is above 18 years. So this is a bad request. So whenever you see 400, it means the user is making an error or making a mistake. And the same thing is applicable here. You add a status of 400. That's the user's error, the client's error. So the status code of 400. Now, if I make a request, this status code is 200. If I make a request with an age now this is the server error 502. This is from the server. So once you see 502, 500 is actually from the server. So something is wrong with the server currently. That is why you are seeing this 502. Yeah, 404, we are going to come to 404. 404 means not found. We are going to come to that. 404, but 404 is actually related to the user. It's the user's error. The user is making a mistake. So I have added status code to these ones to confirm that you see the status code here. Our status code here is 200. If I change this age to be 10 and send this request, okay, my server, I need to start the server. Sorry, before you run anything, you need to start the server. So I've started the server. I will run this again. Now it says user is underage and the status code now is 400. Bad request. That's what it means. If I add this to be maybe 40 years old and then remove the email and then send this request, it will return, please add your email, and the status code is 400. So some developers rely on your status codes. And so since you are building it for the front end, make sure that anytime you are sending a response, make sure that you are sending a status code and you are sending a JSON message. Two of them together, because you don't know who. You might be building a backend that will be used by both a website and both a mobile app. Now, in a case where the software you're working with, they have a website and they also have a mobile app, it means that the two of them will be feeding from the same back end. And the front end guy may be person that rely on message. The mobile guy may be the person that rely on status code. So anytime you are sending a response back to the client or the front end, make sure you are adding a status code and a JSON message. Now, in a case where it is successful, everything went well, you should also add a status code of 200 to tell them that everything went well. So if you add a status code of 200, it means everything was successful. If I come back here and add back the email and send this request now, I have a status code of 200. Everything went well. But there is a case where you will want to, for example, if you are working on maybe an e-commerce website or maybe a user a chat application or a login, you're working on the login API. The login API will require that the user send you email and password. That's for the login. Maybe you're logging in with phone number and password anyways, but it will send you a primary key and send you their password. So it can be email or phone number. Now with that email or with that phone number, you are supposed to find that user's account on your database. So that means that the user must have registered before coming to log in. So if you try to find the user and you don't find the user on the database, you will be returning a status code of 404. 404 means not found. 404 not found, and the message will be this user account does not exist, like that. Or maybe it's on e-commerce, you're trying to find a product and they search for the product and the product does not exist. You return a status code of 404 not found. This product does not exist. So do we have any question on status code? Any question on status code? So it's very, very important that anytime you are sending a response, you should be sending status code. Any question on status codes? So here will be dot 400. And also there could be a case where the user wants to view their wallet or view any sensitive data, but you want them to log in first. You want them to log in first before they are able to view that data. Now, if they don't log in, you send a status code of 401. 401 means unauthorized authentication. Yes, I think, yeah, I'm recording. So, but we're going to treat all of them one by one. I just want to introduce the idea of status code. Any status code that falls within 100, it is information. You are trying to inform the front end or the client or the user about something. So within 100 to 199, you're trying to inform the front end about something. And it's not compulsory that you will use all the status codes, no. You may end up not using them. So it's not compulsory that you use all of them, but there are key status codes. And also, if you are trying to return a response and you don't know the status code to return, you can always search it. Yeah, you just search it and then check what status code should be returned. But don't return a response without status codes, please. All right. That being said, we can move on to something else. Or do we have any question at all? Where are they dropping a message? Hope you're not dropping messages for me. Any question? Yes, wisdom. Every message should have its own corresponding status code, although some status code could be the same. For example, here 400, 400, 400. This means that the user is actually making or sending a bad request. That is why we are adding 400, 400, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you can use 404 if you don't find what they are looking for or what you are looking for, 404. And you could also add 401 or 402 if the user is not logged in and is trying to access a part of the back end or something on the website or the mobile app. You can send them 401 to tell them they are not authorized to do that. Okay, any more questions before we move on to something else? Any more questions? So we're trying to arrange our backend so that it looks good. What the kind of information you want to give out, it depends on you. It depends absolutely on you. Whatever you want to inform the backend, it's not the backend, the front end. Whatever information, I think let me see if there are examples. Whatever information you want to inform them. Okay, for example, here it says This interim response indicates that the client should continue the request or ignore the response if the request is already finished. So it depends on what you want to inform the user or the client. But here it's saying inform the client to actually continue the request or maybe ignore the response if the request has already finished, something like that. For 101 is switching protocol. This code is sent to response to upgrade request header, maybe from the client, and indicate the protocol. So there are so many of them up to 103. Not all, they just give 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can check this out, and then depends on what you want to inform the client about. But we don't usually inform them anything. We'll call you on phone immediately. Guy, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're doing the wrong thing. We inform you over the phone, or we even come to your house and say, no, what are you doing? You're doing the wrong thing, stuff like that. So, but that's information now. You can add you can actually add more, depend on what you want. 404. Now, actually, you don't use any endpoint if it doesn't exist. Now, let me show you what to do when a user is trying to call an endpoint that does not exist. Number one, the first thing you need to do is that this endpoint now should be the last endpoint. The endpoint we are trying to build now is the endpoint that will respond to the client if they make a request to an API that does not exist. So in that case, it will be the last API. It will be the last endpoint, because if the first one does not match, the second one will match it. If the second one doesn't match, the third one will match it. If the third one doesn't match, the fourth one will match. If none of these matches, automatically it should fall down to this one. What we are going to do is add a function here that accepts the request and accept the response. So this doesn't have an endpoint. It doesn't. The reason why it doesn't have an endpoint is because it is the default. It is the default API for any response that is made to an API that does not exist. So what will it do? It will return a response with a status code of 404 telling you not found, and then a JSON message that will say this endpoint, or maybe this API, anyone, this endpoint does not exist yet. Something like this. So, but be careful. This has to be the last API you add. So if I come to Postman and then add something like RRR and send, it will return this endpoint does not exist. If I change it and I write wisdom and send, it returns this endpoint does not exist. So whatever you write here, and it knows that it doesn't exist, it will catch it and say the endpoint does not exist. That is how you can handle requests that are made to endpoint that do not exist, like that. All right, so that's one. Any questions so far? If there's a question, you drop it. If there's no question, please drop a thumbs up so we move on to something else. If there is no question, please drop a thumbs up that will move on to something else. All right, now we have been talking about environmental variables. This thing, environmental variables. What does it mean, and how do we add it to our back end? What does it mean, and how do we add it to our back end? So I'm going to check what is it called, npm, and show you. Yeah, so I will look for .env. Search for it. Yes, this one, .env. Now, .env is a package. You will install it and it handles your environmental variables. So it stores all the configurations you are going to do, all the secret details, everything that you want to use on the backend, whether they are passwords, whether they are email, things that you don't want people to see. So the .env is responsible for handling that. So how do you do it, or how do you use it? The first thing will be to install it. npm install .env. That's the first thing. And then you create the file and start adding the variables. So let's do that. The first thing you want to do, or which I want to do, is to cancel my server and then type in npm, or maybe anyone, npm install .env. The name is .env, and then hit enter. So check your package.json file to be sure that it has installed. So here I have .env installed as a dependency. Now, how do I use it? The first thing is to create a file. It will be .env. Now notice that the name of the package and the name of the file sound the same, but they are not the same. .env with the dot is the name of the package here. .env with what is it called? Full stop, and then env is the name of the file. So if I create this file, I can come in here and say my port is equal to maybe 7000. I can say my password is equal to whatever my password is. I can say my database URL or anything is equal to something. So any information or any data that you know should be secret, any information or any data that should be secret on your back end, you put them inside your .env. You put them inside .env file. So this .env file is a file that contains all your secret data. Now, how do you use it? Notice that our server is running on port 5000, but in our secret file, we say the port should be 7000. So if I want my backend to start using .env, the first thing I'll do is to bring in .env that I installed. Bring it in. Const .env is equal to require the .env I installed. So I decided to bring it in. The next thing will be to configure it. I would then say .env.config. So I've configured it like this. So this is a 2 steps on how to configure .env. You bring it in like this and you configure it. Now some persons do it in one line. So they will remove this. There's no point for this. They just put the .config here, .config. Some people do it everything in one line like this. Bring it in immediately and configure it immediately like that. So bring it in and configure like that. But sometimes I like showing it so that you see what the steps are. The first step is to bring it in. The second step is to configure it. So if I save this now and then save my .env file, if I go back to restart my server, you see now that the server is running on port 7000 because we said that the port should be coming from the process environment. So there is going to be a secret file either locally or in the cloud where you will deploy it. And inside that secret file, a variable port will exist there. And we have it here, the variable port exists there. This is a variable port, and the value is 7,000. So we are saying use the port that is inside our process.env file, or you fall back to 7,000. So let's say we rename this to something else. And now if I restart the server with Ctrl+C, now you see that the server is now running on port 5000. That is because the name of this port and the name of this port do not match. So because they do not match, it means that the two of them are not the same thing. Automatically, it will fall back to 5000, which is what it did here. But if I go back and remove it and save this file and decide to start my server again, you see now it is running on port 7000 because the name of this file and the name of this file, they both match. So that is how to configure .env file. Any question? Any question on how to configure .env file? If there's no question, you drop a thumbs up so we can continue. All right. Who? Thomas, is it you? Okay, then Nathaniel. Go ahead, you have the mic. I think everybody is unmuted. Go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. So, what I understand, like what you normally tell us, you do tell us that backend, like nobody sees what you do in backend. Then this dot EVN, something like that.
Yeah,
You say
EMV,
if
yeah.
thing you don't want people to see, or you want to hide some documents, like is it that other things that people can see? That is why I'm confused.
Now, the thing is this. If you write your codes, there's every possibility that you will send this code to another developer that is working with you, or maybe you send it to the client, or maybe the company has its own GitHub account where you upload this this project, this code base to. So if you are uploading it to anywhere, or you are sending it to anybody, whoever you are sending it to, you are not supposed to send this .env. As a matter of fact, this .env, you will add the name inside this .gitignore, so that whenever you are pushing this project, Git will also ignore the .env. Now, the reason is this. We are going to build login. People are supposed to log in. Now, when people are logging in, you will be generating a token for them, access token and refresh tokens. We are going to do that. Now, those access token and those refresh tokens, you will be using your secret codes that you will put here. It will be called access token. Maybe you want to write your own like this. It will be called access token like this. Or you can call it secret tokens. So it's going to be inside this access file. If a hacker or a developer or anybody else sees your access token, they can log into any account, which is why nobody is supposed to see what you write inside the .env file. That file should be secret more than your BVN or even your bank account, or how to log into your bank account. That's one important thing. Like this file, you're not supposed to show it to anybody, including the owner of the project. One time like that, I don't understand how you downloaded the npm and run it. I want to understand, downloaded npm. I didn't. Are you talking about today's class, Idris? Today's class. I didn't download npm today. All I did was to install .env. This one, .env that is here. This one. I didn't actually download npm today. What I did was to open the npm page. I opened the npm page to show you that we want to use .env file. So to install .env, it's simple. You write npm install .env. Now this --save is the old way of doing it. So you don't need to add --save again. You just type npm install .env like that. So that's how you install it. If you install it, you make sure to check your package.json file that you are seeing .env under dependencies. So if you are seeing it, then it means it has been installed. You go ahead, bring it in like this, configure it, and then you can create a .env file like this. But we're going to work on this .env file more because we'll be connecting to a database. Our password and login details are going to be inside this .env file. We're going to add it. So you said, sir, can I see what's inside .env? Okay, yeah, this is .env. There is nothing working here apart from this port. But we're going to bring in these ones later. There will be other informations about this backend that we want to hide it. We put them inside the .env. The only person that is supposed to know what is inside this .env is you and the cloud where you're uploading this backend to. So when you push your project, you will manually go to that cloud and upload your .env file, or you type them one by one like that. So it is only you and the cloud that is supposed to know what is inside this file. If any other person sees it, just pray that the person has no bad intention of hacking your project or doing anything to your project. And one thing is this: I worked on a project for a client. The client had users, so many users. Some users started to complain about issues, this and that. I'm not able to, my account was debited, I'm not credited, it is hanging, and so on and so forth. So the client called me to start resolving those errors. And he was now asking me to explain how the backend works. Now, that is one mistake you don't want to make. I told him categorically, I cannot tell you how the backend works, which is why it is difficult to see anybody who is going to explain backend to you in details. Now, what do I mean how it works? This is registration here. You know that this API here is working by first, you grab this detail, you check if there is email, you check if there is this, you check if there is this, you create an account, and then you return a response. Nobody is supposed to know how it is working. Nobody. It is only you. Because the moment people know how your backend is working, they will start hacking it. If you know how any of these financial institutions, how their mobile app works, for example, you know that they are using a variable called age, or they're using a variable called name, or they're using this, or they're using that, it is easy for you to manipulate it. And that is why they upgrade mobile apps regularly. They don't really upgrade it because they want to just bring a new one and cause you to download it. No, they are increasing the security of the website. So if people know how it works within 1 year period, they will change it the next year. If they know how it works that second day, they will change it. So as they keep changing it, it becomes difficult that for somebody who wants to hack it, You spend the first 1 year studying it, and that's what people do. Hackers and so on and so forth, they will spend time studying how your backend is working, be sending requests, be doing things, be seeing the responses to see how it is working. If they know how it is working completely and you have not updated it or upgraded it, they will hack it immediately and shut it down. If that's what they want to do, they might either shut it down or hack it or maybe move funds or do anything. So you don't explain in details how your backend is working. When I had my first project, I was building my first project, I started asking questions. Somebody on LinkedIn, another person on Twitter also told me, nobody is going to show you what you are looking for. Nobody. Because we that build backend projects, we sign NDA, non-disclosure agreements. If we tell you exactly how backends work, we are actually leaking information about the product we are working with. So nobody is going to do that. And you are not expected to do that. And not just because of hacking, because if you know how to write your code very well, you keep it to yourself. Otherwise, you are easily replaced. They will find another person to replace you immediately one time. Because I'm not saying there are plenty backends. There are no plenty backends. Of course, if you look at this our number here, we are just 17 of us. And the last cohort, we are even up, I think, were we up to 17? Maybe we were. But if you look at front end, you have up to 100 and something persons, or maybe even more, applying for front end. You have more, 100 and something applying for cybersecurity, product designs, UI, UX. So for backend, we are really, really few when it comes to backend. We are very, very few. But the issue is, who is going to build the backend for all those front ends and all those projects they are designing? It's still us that will build it. So it is difficult to replace backend developers. If you see a backend developer that is very good, there's every likelihood that he will stay on that project for a very long time. But that is notwithstanding, when you build your backend, you don't expose how your backend is working. Even though you know that nobody can replace you, you still don't expose how it's working because they can hack the project. You don't even talk about it. Yeah, it's good to actually post what you are doing. I see a lot of people work on front end, they share their codes, they do this. Yes, you can, but not a project that you are paid for. No, you can't. You can't share anything that has to do with the backend. The backend should remain secret. But for this class, I'm actually going to show you everything you need to know. And that will be it. All right, guys. So any more questions? I think the only thing remaining now, but let's ask any more questions before we, if there is no question, drop a thumbs up. Okay. So should a hacker have access to the token key? How will he be able to see user login ID? Don't worry, when that time happens, you will see how they will be able to see login IDs. But I'm going to teach you how to work with access tokens. So when I teach you, you will answer yourself. How would they know how to log in? You answer that. My network is breaking. Really? Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? If there's no question, drop a thumbs up so that we continue, or maybe we'll do something else. All right, so I think the only thing that is remaining now, because you know how to perform, you know what, let's perform a put request. So this is what we are going to do. I'm going to perform a put request here. I'm not going to do much, just app.put. Then inside the put, I'll do /edit underscore user. That's the endpoint, edit user. And I have a function here that will handle that. So here I'll say request response, and then here What I want to do is accept the user details from the request.body. Request.body. What do I want? I want their name and maybe email and then phone number, for example. Their name, email, and phone number. Yes. The app.use is supposed to come last. Otherwise, it will override every other thing. Sorry. Yes, the app.use is supposed to come last. Otherwise, it will override every other thing. So I want their name, their email, the phone number. What else do I want? Okay, you can do validations if you want. I will just do only one. If there is no email, return. If there is no email, return a response the status of 400 and then a JSON message that will say please add your email. All right, so that's it. Now what do I want to do? I want to create a new user, but what I want to do is before I create a new user, I want to be able to add an ID to this user. So what I'll do is I'll say const user ID. I want to generate a random ID, will come from math.random, generate a random number dot what am I writing? Math.random. Why am I not getting IntelliSense? Math.random times what? Times 100. Yeah, and I want to, you know what? I think I'll leave it like this. Generate a random number, multiply it by 100. That will be the user ID. And then when you do that, I want to pick today's date. Const date, or let's say today, or let's say date, anyone. Const today's date is equal to new date. So I'm getting today's date. And then I want to create a new user. I say const new user is equal to an object. It will be an object that will have their name, comma, their email, comma, their, should I say math number or registration number? Let's say reg number. Their reg number. Their reg number should, you know what? Not reg number. Let us add it as the user ID. Then we'll add the user ID, and then we say date of registration. Date of registration should be the date that we generated, like this. And I want to return a response to say that it is successful. Response.status 200.json, and add a message that will say registration successful. Anyone, reg successful, and then adding the user should be the new user. All right, so I can actually break this thing down if I want. Break it to the next line, break it to the next line, break it to the next line. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm accepting the user. I didn't add their phone number here, so add the phone number here. All right, so we're taking the user's name, their email, and their phone number. Then we'll check if they are sending email. If they're not sending email, we send them a response, and then we'll generate a random number and store it as the user ID. We'll generate a random number and store it as the user ID, and then we'll generate today's date, and then we add all of them up into an object and call it the new user. And then we send back a response with the new user to be the user. So I think this is all. I can then test this request to see that it's working. It's called edit user. So if I come here, it's actually a put request and it's to local host. Let me put local host. Now I need to know the port is running on. It's running on port 7000. So you need to make sure that you're making it to this port. Otherwise, you will not get a response. 7000 / edit user. If I send this response, it says, please add an email. So I'm going to click here, go to the body, change the body to raw JSON. And then I can add those informations that I want. What are they? They are this. I'll copy this and then paste it here, beautify it. So the name here is going to be David Samson. The email here is going to be david@gmail.com. The phone number here 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. And then send this request. So we are getting a random number, not really what we wanted, but at least is a random number. What's today's date? Now we're getting today's date also. Now you can format the date if you want. If we want, we can actually format the date however we want. But luckily for us, we're actually registering this user. We're generating an ID for them and then putting the date of registration. And it's pretty straightforward. So the backend, there are so many ways to do whatever you want. All you need to know is know what the end goal is. What do they want to see at the end? Then you can take your pen and paper, start writing the steps one by one. Now those steps is called algorithm. So you start writing the algorithms to achieve that end goal one by one. For example, they may say build for Uni Abuja, we want students to pay school fees, and when they pay school fees, we want them to register for hostel accommodation, and then after hostel accommodation, we want them to register for their courses online. Whatever they say they want as the end goal, you come down step by step. Which one is the first one? Which is the second? What information do you need from them to register? What and what do you need? And that way is you're done with your backend. As in, the moment you start arranging everything step by step, you're already done with your backend. You're already done with backend. So, any question on what we have done so far on this? Any question on this? And this is not difficult, but if you understand it, then it means you're going to be good at backend. But do you understand this, or do you have any question? Any question? Drop your question. Any question? There is no standard, Nathaniel. Actually, the reason why I'm doing this is because we're not using a database yet. If we're using a database, the database will be generating the ID automatically. Yeah, that's what algorithm. You know, when I was in school, we used to hear algorithms, but they don't really tell us what algorithms are. It's just the step by step, how you do this one, the second one, the first one. That's what algorithm is all about. So, but for Nathaniel, there is no standard. this thing, I can decide to floor it. Let's say I'll put it in brackets and then come here and say math.floor. Yeah, like this. So this means that it's going to generate a random number, but it has to be a whole number from 1 to 100. So if I send this, it's generating 51. If I send this, it generates 43. If I send this, 98, just like that. But like I said, the reason why I am doing this is because this is just random. We're not working with a database yet, which is the next step. Our next class is about databases. So the moment you attach a database to this backend, the database will be keeping record of everybody that has created an account. And that means it will be generating their ID automatically. So you will not be the one generating ID for the users. The database will be generating ID automatically. Now, since is an endpoint that is supposed to edit the user details, the algorithm there, the step-by-step there is this. First, check if they have an email. If they send you an email, fine. Now, if they send you an email, you want to find the user on the database with that email. So what you do is find the person whose data on that database has an email that is matching the email that has been sent to you. So you need to find the user whose email is matching that data. Now, if you find the user, the next thing you want to do is to ask the database to update the old information with the new object they sent to you. Yes, so you are updating the old information that you found here with this object that was sent to you. So that's what a push request is. So you get their email, you get whatever is the primary key, you use that primary key to query the database and find everybody who their email is going to match that email they sent to you. If it matches, if you see the one that matches, you take that data, update the information on it with the new information. That's what a put request is. Where is that 200 and 300 coming from? The 200 is a successful status code. The 400 is a bad request status code. So whenever you are sending a response, be sure to add status codes. So that is where the 200 and 400 is coming from. I don't know what you mean by prototype, but the JSON, now the raw JSON, why we're using raw JSON is that the format with which you want to send data to the backend must be in JSON. The format with which you want to send data to the backend must be in JSON. And also, the format with which you want to send data to the front end must also be in JSON. So simply put, the format with which we send and receive data is JSON. So I don't know what the prototype is doing here, but yeah, but that's so the next step will be how to actually add all of this data into the database. That's the next step. Now, if we do that, we are halfway done. Like we are half done with the back end. All we need to then do is build authentication and we're done. So when we build authentication, you see how users log in, you see how to validate users login details and all of that, monitor user activities, boom, you start building your own project. So that's all for now. So any questions? Any questions? Yes, we have been dealing with CRUD. We have been dealing with CRUD, but the CRUD is not complete. We need to actually save to the database. We have been dealing with CRUD. The CRUD is get, read, delete. We've not done delete, but put and patch are virtually the same thing. So we've done put, we've done post, we've done get, but we haven't done delete. To delete, you must be deleting from the database. So that's why we haven't done delete. So when we are done with CRUD, the CRUD is the basic thing. Now, when it comes to backend, everything on the backend is actually CRUD. Everything is CRUD. Every single thing on the backend is CRUD. Just mention any functionality at all, any functionality, and I'll explain to you how it is CRUD. Any mobile app, any website, anyone that you know, just mention one, and I'll explain to you how it is CRUD. Mention anyone. Any functionality anywhere that you know about on any mobile app, on anything, I'll explain to you how it is CRUD. Anybody. You can also use the mic if you want. So the backend is virtually CRUD, except for everything, except for when you want to add one or two special things to it. Maybe you want to, yeah, but they are all virtually CRUD. Everything is CRUD. So when you understand CRUD mainly, then you can do other things. I have a friend, when this NIM registration started newly, that was when I started teaching a student. Yeah, recharge your account. When you say recharge your account, which of the account? Is it mobile account or Netflix account, phone number, recharge airtime? Is it that one? Which of them? So when this NIN thing started newly, I started teaching one of my students CRUD, which is CRUD. And he, with that idea, he got a job with one MTN, with Lagos, MTN Lagos office. What am I saying? He got a job with MTN in Lagos, MTN office in Lagos. And what did he get information to do? How to actually enter or receive users' NIM details like that. So let's take airtime, for example. If you want to buy airtime, depend on what you are using, maybe mobile app or website, the first thing you want to do is to log in to that device if they allow you, but some of them doesn't allow login. You can buy it without logging in. So the first thing you want to do is send your phone number. You will send your phone number to them. They will hold it. They will not do anything with your phone number, but they will then redirect you to a payment page. So on that payment page is another form. So the first form is the form that accepts your phone number. They will hold your phone number. The second form is the form that collects payment. So on the payment now, it depends on what you want to pay with your card or with your wallet. So if you are paying with wallet, it means you've already funded the wallet with them, which is also CRUD. And I will going to explain wallet later. But if you want to do card payment, you enter your card details, and you enter the card details. So with that card details, automatically it will pick up the bank that owns that card details. It will pick up the bank that owns that card details. And then the bank will send you an SMS telling you that you are about to be debited. So the amount you will send to them, the ATM card number you are sending to them is like a post request. It's not like it is a post request you are sending. So the backend will hold the card details again, hold the amount again, but send you an SMS telling you that you are about to be debited. Can you please type in the card details? So another form will open to type in the OTP, which is another post request. So when you type the OTP again, you've performed another post request to send them the OTP. So as you are sending them the OTP, they will hold the OTP and check whether the OTP they generated matches the OTP you are sending. So if it matches, they will then take the amount that you actually sent the first time and subtract it from your current account balance. Now, if you know finance is not really the money. all of these softwares, that is not really the money you are seeing on that your bank card. Is numbers. It's numbers you are seeing on your software app. They are just numbers. They are not the real money. They are just numbers. The ATM is numbers. So the amount number you enter will be subtracted from the number showing as your account balance. When they subtract it, the backend will now send a response back telling the front end that the payment was completed. The front end that was holding your phone number will then send your phone number to the maybe MTN or anybody that is responsible for crediting you, Glo, will then send your phone number there, and then they will credit your line. So it is simply CRUD in different steps. So, and that is why it is good to understand what algorithm is. Algorithm is step by step. You should be able to understand how to solve a problem going step by step. Now, you may not know the full steps, but know that it is in steps. Everything doesn't come or happen at once. No. All the functionalities you see, they don't happen at once. They are all step by step, step by step, step by step. Now, let's talk about funding your wallet. To fund your wallet, there are step by steps on how to do that, depending on maybe you're working with PiggyVest or any of those ones that offer wallet accounts. The first thing is to create your account with them, a normal account. Now, it depends on what the backend programmed. The backend can say that the moment you register, a wallet should be created for you automatically. It happens. The backend can program it and say, when you register, you've registered. Then you need to log in to confirm and then click a button to actually create a wallet. So what is the wallet and how does the wallet works? The first time you are trying to create an account, you are going to be sending them your details, maybe something like this, your email, your name, state, phone number. This is what you'll be filling in the form. May not be all of this, maybe one of it or two or three, it depends. When you send them those informations, they will take it, create a user, and save the user for you. When they have saved your user, your primary key there could be your email or your phone number. They will use that primary key plus the ID that is generated for you and create a wallet. Now, what will be the keys of that wallet? Your primary key, maybe your phone number, your email, your ID, and then your account balance, which will be 000. That's what they have created a wallet for you. Your account balance will be 000. So they will create another endpoint and call the endpoint fund wallet. So when a wallet has been created for you, there's going to be another API to fund your wallet. How do you perform that request? It's going to be a post request too. You come to the dashboard, you enter the amount you want to fund. When you enter the amount you want to fund, you click send. It will then hold the amount. Because it holds the amount, it will also hold your access token. Now, it's very important you understand access token. We're going to teach access token too. It will hold your access token. Holding the amount and the access token, it will redirect you to a page and ask you, how do you want to pay? Do you want to pay with bank transfer or with card details? You will say card details. Then you enter the card details. It will pick the card details as a post request. Now, these card details, it will be done with post either Flutterwave, Paystack, any of the payment gateway. They will be the ones to do that part. So if you are building, you can either integrate the payment gateway to it, or you're building your own payment gateway. That is, if you're working for the bank, you're building your own payment gateway. So the payment gateway will take your card details, find the bank that owns that card details, find the account that is connected to that card details, and then send it. Now, the bank will send you a code telling you that we're about to debit you so and so amount. Now, you should type in the OTP. You send in the OTP again, which is another post request. So these are different endpoints. The first endpoint is the fund wallet endpoint. The second endpoint is the payment gateway, or maybe what we call, now the payment is divided into two actually. The first payment is initializing payment. where you enter the card details. The second payment is to verify payment. That is the third API, to verify the payment. When the payment is complete, the backend will also verify that the payment is actually complete before sending it. And then the third one, that three of them: fund, initialize, and verify. So when it verifies, it will then send a response back to tell the front end is successful, or maybe not the front end. The back end is just going to do all of them, the three of them at the same time. The back end will do the three of them at the same time. When you click on funding, it will redirect you to the initializing payment. Where you initialize payment and complete it, it will then go back to verify the payment. If it verifies the payment, then it will come back to the fund and then add that amount to the number of your account balance. So your account balance will start reading something like 200 naira or 2,000 naira. How do they do it? They will just say 0 plus 1, or maybe 0 plus 200, just like that. They keep adding. We're going to try something like that and we'll say it too. So that is how you fund wallet. Now, all of them are post requests, post requests, post requests. So that means they are all CRUD. And they're just doing simple addition. They're adding whatever you funded to there, and they are subtracting from your account balance. And like I said, the account balance is not like it's real money. I remember the first time I wanted to work on a fintech project, I was thinking, how do I actually handle real money? It's not real money. It's numbers. It's just numbers. So when you create an account for users, you attach that their ID that is generated for them, and that their primary key, maybe their email or their phone number, to their wallet. So anytime you want to find that user's wallet, the user will be sending you either their email or their phone number. So with it, you're going to find their wallet. When you find their wallet, you add whatever number they want to fund the wallet with. You add it there, and that's all. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue tomorrow on databases and how to work with databases. But do you have any question? Any question? And I know I've said too much, and I know it's going to look so big. It's not big. It's not really big, except when I write the questions on Google Classroom. It will look as if it's big, but it's not really big. So any question? For Netflix, maybe we'll explain how Netflix works another day, but that's fine. That's fine. But it's very good you understand the idea of algorithms, that everything doesn't happen at once. They all work step by step. And you can be building an API for 1 week. One API can take you 1 week. So you are writing your codes one by one. You write the first line today. Tomorrow you write the second line. Next tomorrow the third line. Just like that, just like that, just like that. So the user is not the one writing the endpoint. You, the backend, you are writing the endpoint and you are sending it to the front end. The front end is attaching that endpoint to any of their function that is making the request. So what the user is doing is the user is just clicking buttons. The buttons is the one running the function. The buttons are running the functions. Now, each of those functions are making a request to your endpoint. And I'm sure we've done this now, which is where we started from. How to click a button and it will do something. The button is going to run a request and then bring you a response like that. Now, when it comes to making payment online, now you're saying in a case where I made remitter payment online and it was successful, but the money was reversed, what could have happened on the back end? Now, making payment depends on a lot of factors. Network, for example. When I mean network, I mean the network that is actually changing, switching, and also the server where the backend is hosting is also, maybe the cloud, maybe it's down at the moment, something is wrong with it like that. But in this case now you are explaining, one or two things can actually happen. The first time you come to enter your card details to make that payment as a backend developer, now we are talking as a backend developer, you know that payment is in two versions, two endpoints. The first one is to initialize the payment. So if you initialize the payment can actually say successful. When it tells you successful, it will be waiting for the bank to approve it and say, okay, the money has been transferred, or the number has actually been subtracted from your own number, and to add and giving a signal to increase the other person's number. So that first endpoint, which is to initialize it, can actually say successful. But when it comes to verify, it will then say something went wrong. It could be network, it could be the server is down, it could be your bank is having issue and don't want to be deducted at that moment. Anything could be wrong. So if something is wrong and is not verifying that the payment was actually successful and it cancels, then the money will be reversed to you back, depending on whether it's 24 hours or no matter the number of days, it will be returned back to you automatically. Now, some people have actually upgraded their own to work automatically. So you don't need to go to the bank to fill out any form. Automatically, it can reverse back to you. So as a backend, you now know that there's every possibility that the first time you make payment, it will show you successful, but it has not actually been transferred. So the second part will be the part that verifies the payment. So if it's trying to verify the payment and seeing that the bank is not releasing it, or maybe the bank is having issues or something is going wrong, then the payment will be reversed because it's not been completed like that. So on the back end, maybe that the server is down, or maybe that the bank, their network or the service is down. So that could be responsible. So we're going to, you know what? Let's try. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Flutter Wave. Should I do Flutter Wave or Paystack? Which one? Flutter Wave. Flutter Wave. Initialize payment. Initialize payment. So I just want to show you that it's going to be Flutter Wave. Let's see. Payment methods: card payment, receiving payment, collecting payment, process. Let me see if I have what I'm looking for here. Payment, payout. All right. So if you want to initialize payment, now this is real time. If you want to, okay, Paystack. Sorry, I didn't see Paystack earlier. I went to Flutterwave. So if you want to initialize payment the first time, now you that is working on the back end, see the details. The first one here is, of course, you're going to be making a request. Now, these are the details that is expected to be sent. You are sending the transaction reference, which is like transaction ID. I don't know if you can see this. Let me copy it and send it to you. This is what the backend is expecting. So the backend is expecting transaction reference, that is a unique transaction ID, the amount, the currency, of course, by default is Naira. I know that they actually allow dollar, but by default is Naira. And then this is an endpoint, a redirect endpoint. Now this redirect endpoint is needed for the second verification to actually verify if it was successful. And then this is the user detail you're expecting: the email, their phone number, and their name. So this is the details of the user that you're expecting to initialize the payment. And also the endpoint that does this is this /payment. So the API that does this is actually the API that initializes payment. So here it's called payment, but you know that it is to initiate the payment. And the second part, now if it was successful, it's going to get a response. The second part is after the payment. So here, after the payment, you want to perform the verification to verify. So here they're using a dependency, but it's still the same thing. Axios is a package that is used to make requests. You know, when we did our own requests, we use fetch. We use fetch to make requests. But if you want to, there's alternative to fetch, which is Axios. It's actually spelled as Axios, like this. So you can use Axios, but to make requests. We're going to also use it. We'll try and use it, Axios, to make requests. But if you don't want to, You can use fetch, but fetch works only on the front end. So fetch works only on the front end, which is why we used it in our JavaScript. But if we're going to make a request on the back end, we'll be using Axios. We're going to also try it. I don't know why I came to this paystack Flutterwave, but let's try paystack and see what's on paystack. I'm actually done with the class, but let's see paystack. Paystack documentation. Accept payment. So here, the first part is to accept payment. And yeah, so you see here that they're asking you to send something in the authorization in the request. And the endpoint here is /transaction/initialize. So this is the first API that is going to handle the request to initialize the transaction, but you should be sending an authorization. The authorization should come with your secret key, which is very, you see why they're not writing any secret key here, because it's supposed to be secret. It's supposed to be really, really secret. So, but what they're expecting from you is the email and the amount that you want to fund. That's all they're expecting. They're expecting just the email, the user's email, and the amount, but send what? Authorization, and also call it to this endpoint. That's the first part. The second part is to verify payment. So in order to verify payment, they're not doing much. They're just asking you for the authorization and then asking you append the reference to the endpoint URL. We are going to do this too. So this is how transaction work online. I may not have the time to explain it again. I thank God I've used the opportunity to explain it. But if you don't understand it, there's no problem. We might go over it, we may not, but any which way we have. All right. If there's no question, please drop a thumbs up so that we can end today's class. Don't worry about this. You're going to do it at your own time and you understand it. All right. Bye. See you tomorrow, 5 p.m.